Chairperson and the commissioners, we are receiving the evidence of Minister Lamola, led by Ms. Zikalala.
Yes. Welcome, Ms. Zikalala. Yes. Minister Lamola, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Justice.
Yes. Are you going to give your evidence under oath or affirmation?
Under oath?
Do you swear that the evidence you will give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? If so, raise your right hand and say, "So help me God."
So help me God.
Thank you. Ms. Zikalala, your witness.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Commissioners. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, before you, I just want to confirm that you have a file before you with your statement.
Yes, I do.
Thank you. And then if you turn to page 18 thereof, can you confirm that that is your signature?
Yes, it is.
Thank you. Minister, just by way of background, can you just give the chairperson and the commissioners just your educational and professional background?
Thank you, Council. I am Ronald Lamola. I was born in Mpumalanga and also attended primary in the same area. I am attended at the University of Venda, LLB, and I'm an attorney of the High Court of South Africa. I practiced for 10 years as an attorney before I was called to Parliament and became the Minister of Justice and Correctional Services. And I also, during that period, had a chance of furthering my studies with an LLM in corporate law and also an LLM in extractive law. I also have various certificates in the legal profession and also in telecommunications. I am currently the Minister of International Relations. I served as a Minister of Justice and Correctional Services for 5 years, and I have now served for 2 years as a Minister of International Relations. Thank you.
Minister, I think the village where you were born, the people there would want to hear you recognize the village.
Oh, okay. Thank you for that opportunity. The village I was born is called Canningmore B in Bushbuck Ridge in Mpumalanga. But both my parents were farm workers, and my early childhood education at the primary school was at a farm where my parents were working, which was a TSB farm in Komati Port, next to the Mozambican border. I did Swati in that primary school. Then I moved to the village where my father comes from in Bushbuck Ridge, where I now did Xitsonga. And from there I moved to the University of Venda to study LLB. I was also a student activist at the University of Venda. I became the president of the SRC at that university. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. You indicated already that your first stint as Minister was as Minister of Justice. Can you confirm that that was between May 2019 and June 2024?
Yes, I confirm.
So just, Commissioners, if we can turn to page 6 of the statement that is before you. Minister.
Yes, Ms. Zikalala. Yes.
Yes, thank you. I'd like to start from page, paragraph 17. And just starting with your stint beginning May 2019, can you take the Commission through what were your engagements as at when you began your tenure as Minister of Justice, your engagement with the TRC affected families and with the NPA?
Yeah, thank you very much. Indeed, at the commencement of my tenure, I received a briefing from the NPA. I think it was Advocate Macadam, who was at the time the head of the unit, the TRC unit at the NPA, and also the NDPP, on the progress on the TRC cases. And he did show that at the time there was very slow progress, and that we need to do a number of steps that will enable the NPA to deal with the TRC matters. And he also raised the issues that the families of the victims have been raising with the NPA, their frustrations with the NPA on the slow progress, and then they put forward suggestions of how we can deal with the matter. And one of the suggestions was to engage with the National Treasury to increase the budget that will impact the TRC unit. But at the time, I want to bring it to the Commissioner's attention that as the Minister of Justice...
You speak to the chairperson, you may have to face her.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
No, sorry. Sorry for that. We were also dealing with budgetary issues, not only for the TRC cases. We're also dealing with budgetary issues for the entirety of the Department of Justice, because for almost 5 to 10 years prior to my tenure, the budget of the department was on a decline. One of the huge impacts to the NPA was that they could not appoint aspirant prosecutors for a period of about 5 years. We also had now the Zondo Commission of Inquiry, which also needed significant amount of resources. So we had to work within this environment. And we then agreed with the NDPP and the Director General of the Department of Justice that we'll need to approach the National Treasury to allocate resources for the department and the NPA, and also that the TRC matters need dedicated resources. The second issue was that he raised was the capacity within the NPA, the unit, that they didn't have enough personnel. And again, we agreed that we need to give support for them to appoint the personnel that they need to be able to handle this matter. The other issue was that they then said the NPA or the justice system work in a relay form of some sort, that it will not help if the NPA gets these resources and then the Hawks doesn't have investigators. We then agreed that we must, the NDPP must also approach the Hawks or the National Police Commissioner to increase the capability of the police and have a dedicated personnel to deal with the NPA TRC specific unit, so that there will be investigations, there will be prosecutions, and then the matters can flow in that manner. I think the other issue that we dealt with, I might be wrong, but there was a debate that he said has arisen between the NPA and the families about the issue of decentralization of the prosecution of this matter. In other words, having the matters being delegated to the DPPs in the various provinces across the country. That if an incident has happened in the Eastern Cape, it must be prosecuted by the DPP in the Eastern Cape and his team there. Similar, if it's in Gauteng, it must be handled at the provincial level with the team in the Gauteng, so forth. So with Mr. Macadam becoming the overall coordinator, with whoever that he will be working with. The families did not favor this according to him, the briefing that I got at the time. And I think I then agreed with them that it will best serve the NPA if these matters of prosecution will be decentralized, because the DPPs can have clear oversight in their provinces, and if the matter is in Gqeberha, there will be someone there dedicated, and similarly the Hawks will be engaged to do the same. So I think that is my first recollection of the first interaction of myself with the TRC matter.
Thank you. Can you then now also then take the commissioners through what were your engagements then with the families in and around that time?
Yeah. I think my first engagement with the families happened during the COVID period. I'm saying so under correction because what I remember is that the meeting happened virtually. So I can only believe, and that is the reason why I believe it was during the COVID period. And it was under the auspices of the ANC. I was called by the Deputy Secretary General of the ANC, the late comrade J.C. Duarte. I think it was myself, Deputy Minister Jeffrey, and the representative of the families. I think it was under Foundations for Human Rights, Yasmin Suka, yes, and I think there was also Hefner. I might be mixing up, but those were the representatives of the families, and there were others who were in the platform representing the families. They then raised an issue with us. One was the budget issue, which we did acknowledge that indeed there is a budget problem, there is a challenge, which we are addressing with the National Treasury at the time. Secondly, they raised the issue of dedicated resource, and that we should establish a unit on its own for the TRC, which I responded, if I'm correct in this, that this is where the issue of decentralization, they raised it, that they've got a problem with this approach that the NPA is now taking to decentralize these matters. And then we did say that in our view, the decentralization will enable the matters to move, to be, it's better to test this in practice other than being stuck with the debate as to how best to handle the matter, because the NPA believes that if this matter is handled at the provincial, district, or regional level, it will have dedicated personnel, prosecutors who will handle it, and also there was also an engagement with the Hawks to do the same countrywide. I think that was my first meeting with them, with the families. The other issue that they raised was the number of the issues that they were concerned that these delays, the witnesses are dying. The more the matters are being delayed and so forth, the witnesses are dying, and that we made a commitment that we will work with the NPA to resolve these teething challenges. But it was made clear even then that I agreed with the NPA on the decentralization because I thought it's the best way also to handle the matter. And then I think that was my first meeting, and then I delegated the deputy minister to take further engagements from then with the families. But I also had other interactions in events and activities with the families. The one that I recollect is the one that happened in Craddock, in one of the commemorations where we also had some discussions. And I think there was also another one in Johannesburg Central under the family of Timoli Agat. There was some form of commemoration which I attended, where there was also some interaction with the families. I think another one that may not really be relevant for the purpose of prosecution, but it is in relation to the TRC, was where I also came to the Constitutional Court. There was a group of women that was protesting on the reparations of the TRC, the issues of compensation, and so forth. That was at the Concord. They had been there for quite some time. If I'm not mistaken, it was almost like a month or so. The Tumaini or Tumamini group.
Kulumani.
Yes, Kulumani. Yes. Thank you, CJ. It looks like you are younger than me. So
I wish.
So again, there was a structured discussion with them on the way forward with regards to their matter of compensation, where we clarified that it will be difficult to reopen the list of beneficiaries on the reparations process, but if there is clear evidence, we can find the ways to support them, for them to work with the TRC unit, including on education for the children and so forth. So it was a more of a reparation and compensation issue, not in relation to what this commission is currently dealing with.
Thank you. Thank you for the context and background that you've given in relation to some of your engagements. From paragraph 19 to about 21 of your statement, Commissioners, that's from page 6 to 7, you set out the kind of legal and the legal background and the legal framework within which you understood your role as the minister vis-a-vis that of the NPA. And could you then explain then to the Commission what you understood in that context it meant for you to be taking final responsibility as set out?
Yeah, thank you. Was that my role as the final responsibility was to ensure that the NPA has the resources, the policies is in place for them to do their job, and it's for me to demand accountability, which I could also request reports on specific cases, how far are they progressing and so forth, including the TRC matters, also oversight of the NPA. But my understanding was that the prosecutorial decisions remained theirs, and they should be assured, and we should always be clear that this is is something that the minister can't do anything about. It's their own independence.
Thank you, Minister. I'm now reading or looking at your statement from page 7, paragraph 22. And now taking your understanding about what was the legal framework, how then, or what steps, and it's set out from paragraph 22, what steps did you start taking to start capacitating the NPA or capacitating the NPA for purposes of its prosecutorial functions?
Yeah. As I've said earlier on, for the NPA to be able to execute their mandate, they need resources. And prior to my term, they were really struggling financially. So we had to engage with National Treasury. And I think at the time, National Treasury came to the party for the NPA. It was not specifically dedicated to the TRC, but there was a ball figure to improve the finances of the NPA, which also helped the process with regards to the TRC cases. And as a result, they were now able to appoint people in that space of the TRC prosecution, including support staff, where I also had to write to the Minister of Public Service and Administration to request support, in particular for this unit of the NPA on the TRC, which we did, and we did receive concurrence from DPSA, and the staff was appointed to capacitate the NPA to deal with this. I also received a report from the NDPP that she has engaged with the head of the Hawks and the National Police Commissioner, and they've committed to put 40 investigators. I think these were retired investigators, so that the relay effect that I spoke about, that firstly there will be investigations, processes will unfold, and when investigations are concluded, it will then lead to the NPA prosecuting will then happen, because the NPA itself was already being capacitated, was gearing up to handle these TRC matters. And we were now believing that with this ramping up and capacitation of the NPA, they will be able to handle a number of matters, and the police should not be left behind. So the police also agreed to put this capacity, and this capacity then enabled the TRC unit of the NPA to be able to coordinate in the provinces and to work with the provinces in terms of how to prosecute these matters. And I think from that point, I could see improvement on the work of the NPA. And the improvement came through when they started to bring requests for inquests to be reopened across the country.
Thank you, Minister. Just for purposes of reference, if one looks at your Annexure RL3 that is on page 28, is that maybe one of the
You'll have to
examples?
speak into the microphone, please.
Oh, apologies. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
I can hear myself better. If you look at Annexure RL3, that is on page 28, that is a memo or a letter from the
Yes.
Department of Public Service and Administration. Is that an example
Yes.
of the kind of administrative steps that were being taken?
Yes.
Yes. Commissioners, I'm not certain if there's anything further you want to add, but for purposes of your reference, just that annexure. Minister, I'd like to now turn to the issue or the question about the record of delivery, and this was one of the issues that was raised in the notice that was put before you. And the first question I wanted you to address is, in your opening statements, when you were talking about your discussions with, is it Advocate McAdams, he indicated that there was slow progress in relation to the prosecutions. Now, can you, and we're starting at the end here, but can you reflect back on your tenure as Minister of Justice? And can you speak about the position that you found when you arrived, and how was the progress throughout your tenure? We will go through the various cases. I just wanted you to just reflect on that at the moment.
I think from what I found and what I then resolved to be preoccupied with after my briefing with Advocate McAdams was a preoccupation to ensure that there is prosecution on the TRC matters, and that this prosecution is well supported from myself as the Minister of Justice, and that it should also be, not only be through word of mouth, it should be shown in action. And this action was the support for the National Treasury's adjustments, the SAPS, the DPSA, and all efforts as the Commission can see were put for me to support the work of the NPA to ensure that there is prosecution on these matters. So I believe that even after I then took over and up until the end of my term, this was the most successful period of dealing with TRC matters since the dawn of our democracy. And this can be proven by the facts. The cases that came to me for reopening after this work of recapacitating the NPA and the SAPS. So commissioners could look from the period 1994 up until 2019. The difference is tremendous. And cases are there to prove it. And this was because of the work that we put to support the NPA. So if there is anything that could be checked, I believe that this can speak for itself. The states, the matters, how they came forward, and also what then happened beyond 2024 during my tenure. So I will characterize it as the most successful period of prosecution or of taking forward the TRC matters in a post-democratic South Africa.
Minister, can you then begin to take us from paragraph 26, or we can start from paragraph 26.1 on page 10 of your statement?
Paragraph?
26.1 on page 10, paginated page 10.
Oh, okay.
Do you want him to read that?
I have it now.
Yes.
Yeah.
If you can take us through the various examples that have been set out from paragraph 26.1.
Okay, thank you. On 16 August 2019, I formally requested the Judge President of the Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal Division of the High Court to designate judges to reopen the inquest into the death in detention of Dr. Nel Agat and Hussein Hafaji. That request was made in exercise of my statutory powers to facilitate the reopening of the inquest, which were warranted in terms of Section 6D of the Inquest Act 58 of 1959. And the copies have been attached, RL4 and RL5. In 2021, to support the NPA's decision to pursue TRC-related cases, the Minister approved a request to employ additional personnel to increase prosecutorial and investigative capacity and to make the necessary budget available to enable those matters to proceed.
If you mention the paragraphs, it would help.
Oh, paragraph 26.2
Yes, you have read it.
and paragraph 26.3, a new acting head of Priority Crimes Litigation Unit was appointed and decentralized model implemented, in terms of which directors of public prosecutions in the relevant jurisdictions assumed responsibility for investigations and prosecutions, with the PSCLU providing oversight and coordination. To give effect to this model, dedicated capacity was created within the NPA to focus specifically on TRC matters. 13 additional prosecutors were appointed, bringing the total to 23 dedicated prosecutors working on these cases in collaboration with 34 dedicated DPCI investigators who were appointed to strengthen the investigative capacity. 26.4, as a result of these measures, 53 cases were receiving active attention nationwide by April 2021. By March 2022, that number had increased 215 matters under investigation. These cases were identified from the TRC report, evidence presented before the TRC, reports from family members of the deceased persons, and audits of deaths in detention. A further audit of deaths in detention reported by the TRC identified 57 additional matters, and 3 more cases were opened following representations from victims. 26.5, the inquest into the 1982 death in detention of Ernest Dipale was reopened in 2021 and concluded in 2023. The court held that the security branch of John Foster Square was responsible for the Ernest Dipale's death and identified further suspects for investigation. The approval of the reopening of this inquest is found and attached as RL4. In 2022, 26.6, former security branch and reaction unit officers were indicted for the murder of Kefas Nyoka. The trial commenced in April 2023 and concluded in late 2025 with the convictions of murder. 26.7, in 2022, the Judge President of the Western Cape Division of the High Court was requested to designate a judge to reopen the inquest in relation to the death in detention of anti-apartheid activist Mr. Abdullah Haron. 26.8, in November 2023, Guguletu Madonsela was sentenced to 10 years for the death of Siphelele Nxumalo as a result of the joint efforts by the NPA's TRC component and the Directorate for Priority Crime Investigation. 26.9, in relation to the disappearances of Mtombigaise Gubeka and Musawenkosi Pewa, inquests were opened in 2022, and in November 2023, the DPP decided to prosecute 4 former security branch members. A 5th accused was charged in 2024. Following investigations, 26.10, following investigations conducted by the KwaZulu-Natal Hawks and the KZN TRC unit, inquests were held in late 2022. Thereafter, in January 2024, 4 former security branch officers were indicted for the murder of Jamison Ngoloi Mngemezulu. 26.11, in January 2024, I acted on the recommendations of the National Prosecuting Authority to approach the Judge President of the Eastern Cape Division in Gqeberha to designate a judge to reopen and preside over the inquest into the deaths of Mr. Matthew Goniwe, Mr. Sparrow Mkonto, Mr. Fort Kalata, and Mr. Stelo Mhlauli, a collective known as the Credit 4. 26.12, in May 2024, I accepted and acted on the recommendations of the NPA to reopen the inquest into the death of Chief Albert Luthuli, Mlungisi Griffiths Mcenge, and Boy Maji. Should I proceed? 27. These steps demonstrate some of the progress made during my tenure as Minister of Justice following the steps taken to capacitate the NPA, as discussed above. I have attached various press releases related to the matters discussed above as RL9 to RL12.
Thank you, Minister. If you could just, for the Commissioner's records, Annexure RL9 begins at page 71. Minister, if you'd like to just have a look at those.
Yes, I am at page 71.
Yes, and if you might confirm that those are the various media statements that were issued by the department at the time.
Yes, I confirm. And I think there is one, I can't remember which one, but I think it was the one related to Chief Albert Luthuli or the Credit 4,
Yes.
which summarizes all the cases that I dealt with during my tenure.
Yes. Minister, if I can refer you then, that one is, Commissioners, for your record, It's annexure RL12.
Page 76.
Yes, page 76. Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes.
And Minister, is there anything further that you'd like to discuss in relation to this?
No.
Yes. Chairperson, commissioners, we then want to then turn to the discussion in relation to the establishment of the Commission of Inquiry. And for that, I would ask that you turn to page 13 of the statement. Actually, it might be better to turn from page 14 of the statement, from paragraph 31 and 32. Minister, you in the statement you refer to the Rodriguez judgment having been a watershed moment at certain points. Those are my words. Can you just take the commissioners through what you've set out in paragraph 31 and 32 and how that kind of shaped things going forward?
Yeah, thank you. The reason, and I agree with the characterization of it as a watershed moment. I see my period as the pre-Rodriguez judgment and the post-Rodriguez judgment. With the pre-Rodriguez judgment, I was dealing with what I have just outlined to the Commission. The preoccupation to ensure that the NPA has the capacity, the hawks, and that there is prosecution. That was my preoccupation on the pre-Rodriguez judgment. It continued to be so even the post-Rodriguez judgment, but the Rodriguez judgment then added a watershed moment or a new dimension that we had to consider from the executive and also in engagement with the NPA. What we had to consider, what was the meaning of the judgment? What does it mean in the actual implementation of the judgment? And these commissioners may be aware or have seen or from the previous witnesses. We also had to seek lots of legal advices post the Rodriguez judgment. Because one was that there was a ruling of the Rodriguez judgment which said that there must be a clear accountability and that the NPA may need to investigate if there was a political hand or executive hand that obstructed the NPA from prosecuting. So, and on the other hand, in the public pressure, particularly from the families, was that this judgment meant that there must be a commission of inquiry to investigate this aspect of the political interference. On the other hand, we are dealing with the issues of the inquest and also the context which I provided, that there is contestation of resources in the space. And this time also is the time where the cost of the Zondo commissions were escalating. And the department is struggling even to to close the gaps within the department and also with the NPA. So all these factors combined, including what is the legal position, became a new watershed moment, because now we needed to seek legal advice. Then what should be the legal position? And our understanding as we were engaging was that firstly, we will need to allow the Rodriguez case to run its course. With that, I mean to be concluded in the appeal courts, so that there can be legal certainty about its application. But there were other issues that for me became obvious, that because the prosecution of these matters is ongoing, we needed to assure the victims and the families that prosecution must continue and will continue, and there will be no interference with the prosecution. That must continue because it's not going to stop because of the Rodriguez judgment. But at the time, we could not really consider whether there should be a commission of inquiry, what is the best course of action. So for me, that then it is what I term the watershed moment of the Rodriguez judgment.
Minister, can I ask you to then go to page 15 of your statement, from paragraph 34. I don't know if you'd want to read 34, 35 into the record,
okay.
or if you want to discuss.
Mr.
the matter.
Galala, he's your witness. You must not ask if you don't know whether he's going to read it. You must direct him if you want him to read it into the record.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. So,
Yes.
Minister, then could you, looking at paragraph 34, 35, could you read those into the record, and then we can discuss the issues emanating from there?
Yeah, thank you. 34, the power to establish a commission of inquiry does not vest in the Minister of Justice. It is a constitutional prerogative of the President. The role of the minister in relation to commissions is administrative and supportive, once established, and not constitutive. While a minister may, within his or her discretion and upon proper consideration, make a recommendation to the President that a commission be established, the decision whether or not to do so remains that of the President alone. I had no legal authority to create such a commission, and any suggestion that I refuse to establish one attributes to me a power I didn't have or possess. I recognize that the matters concerned involve grave human rights violations, and that the families have waited many years for accountability. That frustration is understandable. However, the exercise of public power must remain lawful and within constitutional limits. A minister cannot act simply because a request is made or pressure is exerted, however compelling the case, the cause. Decisions of this nature must fall within the powers conferred by law.
Thank you, Minister. So from paragraph 36 then, we then discussed the various states, you discussed in the various, in these paragraphs, the various steps that were taken to get legal clarity. So could you take the commission through the advices that were sought as discussed in paragraph 36 and 37 of your statement?
Should I read it or just explain?
You can read it into the record, and then we
Okay.
can then look at the annexes.
Following 36, following the Rodriguez decision, in 2022, the Deputy Chief State Law Advisor recommended that I appoint an investigating panel to examine alleged interference and delay in the prosecution of TRC matters. I engaged directly with the NDPP on the recommendations and thereafter wrote to her confirming the legal position. And the legal position is that the investigation of alleged misconduct within the prosecuting authority does not lie within the power of the minister. It falls within the statutory authority and discretion of the NPA itself, including under Section 21 of the NPA Act. I did not assume a power that the law does not confer. I attached the memorandums as RL6 to RL7.
Minister and Commissioners, for your records, RL6 can be found at,
Page 58.
yes, page 58 of the bundle. And RL7 can be found at page 64 of the bundle record. Minister, can you then continue to paragraph 37?
Paragraph 37, during 2022, the NPA, acting within its powers and with my support, appointed senior counsel to lead an investigating panel to examine allegations of interference and delay in TRC-related prosecutions. A copy of the memorandum is attached as RL8.
Yes. And Minister, then to complete then this section, can you continue then to paragraph 38? You've already outlined it earlier in your evidence, but if you can just read this into the record.
Paragraph 38. This position must be understood in the broader institutional context of the NPA's needs as set out above. In those circumstances, the rational course was to ensure that the constitutionally mandated prosecuting authority was properly equipped to perform its function, directing available funds and executive attention towards institutional strengthening was a more immediate and effective mechanism for advancing accountability, particularly where prosecutions were the relief sought by the affected families and required by the law.
And continue to 38 and then 39 and 40 on page 17.
Paragraph 39, commissions of inquiry are significant fiscal institutional undertakings. They require extensive funding and long-term administrative support. There has been legitimate public concern regarding the cost and duration of commissions and the burden they place on the public purse, particularly where existing constitutional institutions are already empowered to investigate and prosecute.
And then finally, paragraph 40.
The NPA is a constitutionally and statutorily designed body to prosecute criminal offenses. The courts adjudicate those matters once enrolled. In exercising my oversight responsibilities over the prosecuting authority and the broader justice system, my primary focus was to ensure that available resources were directed towards strengthening these institutions so that they could fulfill their constitutional mandate effectively.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, then I want to turn to the last issue in your statement, which was raised in the notice that was put before you in relation to a question you had been asked at the Justice and Portfolio Committee meeting on the 8th of December 2021. And the question was whether government had been hampered by a decision taken at CODESA not to prosecute TRC cases. Could you address that question when it was addressed to you then, and also then address the Commission in relation to what is your answer to that question now?
Yeah, I said I was not aware of such a decision at CODESA, that there should be no prosecution of TRC-related matters. And as the commissioners can see, and I believe also the families themselves in their applications for requests to cross-examine me, they acknowledge that there was work that I did. There was tremendous progress during my time in office. So I was not aware. That's why I went in with a spirited energy to ensure that there is prosecution, there is investigation. I was not aware. Even the president never raised the issue that with me that I must slow down on the work that I was doing to support the TRC matters and all that. But as commissioners could see the dates, I rely on records with regards to Codesa. I was in primary school, really. So, but I had no records that she said to me, there was this decision at Codesa, therefore I should not support the work of the NPA and the Hawks in prosecuting TRC matters.
Chair, Commissioners, we have reached the end of Minister Lamola's statement. If I might just be permitted to just confer
Yes, you
with
may.
Micah. Minister Lamola, for purposes of your statement, I think we have covered those issues that were outlined in his statement.
Yes. Does
Thank
that
you, Chair.
conclude your evidence in chief?
That would conclude our evidence in chief.
Thank you.
Microphones off, please.
Even the other one. Thank you. Ms. Kesri?
Chair, we have no questions of clarification
Thank
for this
you.
witness. Thank you.
I don't see anyone I am familiar with. You are with Ms. Kesri? Yes. Is there anyone online who would want to put clarificatory questions to Minister Lamula?
Good afternoon, Chair.
Yes.
I think there's two of us that are speaking. It's Ms. Ntloko for the NPA,
Yes, Ms.
and we
Nkosi.
don't have any clarification questions for the Minister. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good afternoon, Chair. Ms. Ntambeleni, we do not have clarificatory questions for the witness.
Thank you, Ms. Ntambeleni.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Matlalipule Ranto for the SAPS, no clarification questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ranto.
Afternoon, Chair. Mr. Kotzo, no clarification questions.
And you are?
Mr. Kotzo.
Ms. Rukotso, thank you. Mr. Vani?
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yes.
Chairperson, we have applied to cross-examine Minister Lamola. I understand that permission has been granted, but we have consulted with our learned friends for the Minister, and they have requested time to consult with him further, so that the request is that we schedule another time for his cross-examination.
Yes. Are we in a position to determine the date for such cross-examination, Mr. Siminya?
No, Chair, it is for a date yet to be confirmed with both the Minister and...
Your microphones, Mr. This one as well, this one. You switched off there.
Chair,
Yes.
yes, the date will have to be determined between ourselves and Minister's legal representatives.
Yes. Thank you. Ms. Sigalala, you are aware? You are aware of the application that has been brought and been granted to cross-examine Minister Lamula?
Yes, Chairperson, we received the application yesterday afternoon.
Yes, thank you.
Minister Lamola, thank you for your evidence. I just want your views on two matters. The TRC report was released in 2003, and you assumed office into 2019. And it's your evidence that your tenure saw the most successful period on the TRC cases. Now, what did you think of the 16 years before you took office and the time that the TRC report was released? It's a period of 16 years. What are your views on that delay?
I didn't understand why these matters had to wait for me. So, and also the fact that when you look also in that period, the fiscal position of the country was in a more better position. Even the crime level, the priority issues that the criminal justice system had to deal with had not yet evolved to a complex situation where we were now, where we had to also deal with the issues of state capture, violent crime, and all these resources that now had to be dedicated to what was in front of the country. And we had to take from that when we're engaging with the National Treasury to provide the support to the NPA. So yeah, that was my reaction. I think I mentioned it even in Parliament, that I really don't understand why this had to wait for us when we are dealing with real competing priority crimes in the country that this money should be used for if these matters were resolved a long time ago.
Okay, thank you. And then just your view on this. You say you approached your tenure with spirited energy, to quote you. You approached the TRC cases. Now, I'm trying to understand why previous ministers of justice your predecessors, why they didn't approach these TRC cases with the same rigor. What are your views on that?
Yeah, I don't know, because as I've said, from when I was in the office, there was nothing that was hamstringing me as the Minister of Justice to support the work of the NPA and the Hawks. So I will not know really, I can only speculate, but during my tenure, there was nothing at all. It was a freeway. The president never said slow down, stop, or look at this is sensitive, no, nothing. So I just continued with my job.
And there were no impediments
Nothing, zero.
to you doing your job?
Nothing, zero. I never even received a phone call. So
Yes.
I will not know.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Minister, can I ask the same question differently? Did you engage any of your predecessors and ask them, but what was the inkinga? What was the problem?
Yeah, I'm not. There was a handover report from former Minister Masuta to me. But I no longer remember whether we did discuss the issue of the TRC, because I think at that time I was not fully aware that there is a challenge. I only became aware that there's a challenge after I spoke with the NPA through Advocate McAdam and the NDPP when they told me about the challenges. So by the time the handover happened, it was just a week after, I assume, and I don't think we went that deep on the discussion. So I never had that chance.
Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Minister, we thank you for having availed yourself to come and give evidence before this commission. As you are aware, an application to cross-examine you has been granted, and you will be expected to return to this commission on a date to be determined for your cross-examination. We thank you for attending.
Thank you, Commissioner. As the council has said, I have no objection to the cross-examination. Thank you.
These proceedings are adjourned until tomorrow at 10 o'clock.